listening to TalkTainmentRadio.com.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
This is Motives of the Heart, an uplifting and inspirational show bringing joy to the heart. I'm MEMEP.
This is Motives of the Heart. Be careful how you live, son. There's a tall, statuette young man with a beautiful bronze skin standing tall in line. He is so proud of himself. He has finally made it, the first step. As he is standing there in line, he is getting ready to cross the stage to receive his bachelor's degree. He has a 3.45 grade point average. His college experience? Well, he has had his share of one-night stands, his share of being caught by several different girlfriends cheating. He has also had a secret affair with one of the professors, frat parties, and even one ding on his driver's record as he got in an accident. No one was seriously injured, but it was due to his alcohol consumption. But he has made it. And here we are as he is standing in line and the line is moving slowly. He drifts off in his thoughts of him and his father. The first one is he's about 6 years old and his father taps him on the shoulder to pat him as they are walking to the vehicle, and he says, "Be careful how you live, son." The second memory is that he is a little older and he's riding his tricycle outside. And his father is inside the garage working on a car. He's not supposed to go past the driveway, but he did. And then he realized he needed to hurry up and turn around and get that tricycle back up on that driveway. And as he's riding the bike as fast as he can and he turns into the driveway, he turned his little tricycle bars too tight and he falls. As he screams and lands on the ground, his father hears him and come out. "Son, are you okay?" As his dad sees that he's bleeding, his dad hurries to help him stand. And he says, "Son, never ride your tricycle without your helmet. Be careful how you live." Then again, he remembers a scenery when he was 16 years old. He is sitting there behind the wheel driving and he's smiling. He has had some time when he's in the training school and he's still driving with his dad. Dad is sitting in the driver's seat and enjoying the time with his son. But then Dad noticed his son's attraction to a young lady that's walking down the street. His dad calmly says, "Son, driving requires your undivided attention. Driving is also a strategy to prevent accidents that can harm someone, yourself, or even cause a life. Such as driving in life, the pathway you go. Be careful how you live, son." Then his fourth memory is, he's now getting ready to graduate from high school. He's excited. He's in his bedroom getting dressed. As he grabs his tie and turns to the mirror, he hears a knock at the door. It is his dad. His dad says, "Son, may I come in?" He's excited and said, "Sure, Dad, you may enter." Dad walks straight up to the mirror and stares at his son as he speaks to him. He says, "Son, you have made me and your mom proud. You haven't given us many irritants in life. You're respectful and kind to others. Now life is getting ready to take you to a new journey. Be careful how you live, son." He turns around, embraces his son in a hug, and then goes to exit the room. As he reaches out his hand to turn the knob, the son turns around and says, "Dad, I remember all these years of how you spoke that to me." And his father turns and looks at him and says, "I did that, son, that you would keep it at the forefront of your mind Always be careful how you live, son. And he exits. As the memory fades away, someone touches the young man on his shoulder. And then he becomes alert and he sees the wide gap between him and the person in front of him. He turns behind and tells the young man sorry and hurry and close the gap. And he pays attention for a little while, but the line is still long. Now he's at the bottom of the steps before he enters the stage. And now his mind drifts off to his dad, but it's not so far a memory anymore. It's just a little more than 2 weeks ago. As he was working at his job, he gets a phone call from his sister. She says, listen, Dad has had a massive heart attack. You need to get here quick. It's bad. He says, where is Mom? She said, Mom is here with me in a car. We are following the ambulance. She is shaking. Get here fast. She's secure in her seatbelt. His best friend, who also works at the same place, just happened to see that he's on the phone and the faces that he's making. He hurries over, asking what's going on. They both leave, and his best friend takes him an hour long to where the hospital is. He jumps out, goes inside, talks to the nurse. He's taken to the area where his dad is. As he goes to enter the room, he first sees his sister, and she jumps up and grabs and hugs him. Then he comes to his mind that he hears the beep, and he sees his dad is laying on the bed, and there's a machine telling of his dad's heartbeat. Then as he glances over, he notices that his mom is standing next to his dad, and he goes over. He looks down at his dad at first, but his dad just looked like he's sleeping. Then he turns to his mom, grabs her tight, and whispers to her, Mom, we're going to get through this together. Then he pulls back from his mom and he says, what are they saying? She said the doctors are doing some further tests. They're not sure how much heart damage has been done and how much has been done to his brain. Just as that happens, the sister catches the brother's attention and he comes outside the room. She tells them, hey, I went over to visit Mom and Dad, and as I was going past the kitchen window, I heard them arguing. She said, and then I heard all of a sudden Mom screaming. I hurried and opened the back door to find Dad on the floor, clutching his heart. We called the ambulance, and thank God they are less than 3 minutes away. For at some point, Dad quit breathing, and we couldn't get him to breathe. But the paramedics came in right away and revived him. He said, what were they arguing about? And she said, something to do with you. And he said, why? She said, I heard Mom saying, you need to tell him. It's been too long. You need to explain to him. He said, explain what? And she says, I don't know. Just then the doctor comes in and he gets their attention and they all stand there. The doctor said, listen, I need you all to follow me to a different room. We're going to the waiting room near the surgery area. Please follow me now and I'll explain. Just transport people are here to transport him to surgery. It is immediate that we get started. He takes them over to the area quickly and he says, I have not much time. Here's where we are. The blockage is worse than we was hoping it to be. It's almost complete. And there is some brain damage, but we really won't know for sure until once we get in. It's going to be a long day. I suggest that you all prepare. I will send out and give updates as needed. He said, I must go. I only say one thing left to you. I promise you that me and my team will do our best. But I do suggest that you pray to the one that gives life and the one that ends life. If you will excuse me. The mother and the children paced the floor for hours and hours, only periodically taking a seat to relax their feet and their bottom legs. Then all of a sudden, they notice that Uncle pops up. He comes in and says, sister-in-law, how's it going? And he hugs her, and the family gather together. She steps back and says, I don't know where we are. The doctors have him in surgery and he's been in there for hours, but no one has yet come and give us an update. Just as that is said, Someone from the surgery team steps out and says, "We know it's been long hours, but there were a little setback, but now we're back on track and we're hoping for a better outcome. But things are serious and there's more damage than we expected." He said, "I can give you no further information. We will contact you after the surgery is complete." So they pace there and they go back and forth, back and forth. Little is said, for everyone is concerned. Then after many hours, the head surgeon comes out and he speaks with them. He said, "Listen, I need you to understand, this is going to be a long procedure, a long time of progression if there is. We're not sure how things is going to turn out. The next 24 hours is critical. I'm going to go back, but I'll have a nurse come out. We have transported him to the IC unit, the intensive care cardiac unit. Once he is settled in, a nurse will come take you to that floor where there is a small waiting room. After she takes you there, she'll come back later and let you know when you can visit. I suggest short visits. I am one who believes when a person is unconscious, whether it be by medical induced or if the brain is just shut down for a little bit, that a person can hear you. So be brief, control what you say, only let them know that you're here and you love them." He walks away. Shortly the nurse comes and they go in upstairs to the next floor, and Mom tells them, "Let us remain calm." As they go in to see him, the nurse stops and says, "Only two permitted." So the mom and her brother-in-law goes in, and they're in there too long. They stay 2 minutes. But then the uncle comes out and the daughter goes in. The uncle and the son just talks a few minutes about family, how each other doing. Then the uncle takes a seat. The son, remembering what his sister said, goes and sit down and say, "Unc, sister says she overheard them arguing about something concerning me that Dad needed to tell me. Do you know what it is?" The uncle turns to him and says, "Listen here, nephew. We are in a serious situation. Married couples argue, you know that. Whatever it is doesn't matter. Right now, we're here for support for your dad and your mom." The young man leans back and said, "You right, Unc." Just then, the sister comes out to come get her brother. But shortly behind her, is a few steps, is her mother crying, and you hear bells going off that there is something wrong. Mom comes and says, "He's not breathing. He's not breathing." She looks up and she said, "Oh, husband of mine, do not leave me here alone." They grab her and they take her to have a seat. Things are done, and then after a while, a doctor comes out and says, "We have got him stabilized. I did explain to you that this first 24 hours is critical." He said, "I do suggest that you try to relax, but I will not permit any more visitation. For the mind needs to rest as much as the body. Surgery is traumatic to both. I have told the nurses I have given you permission to stay the night here in the waiting room, just so you can be near him." He said, "But understand, you need to nourish your body as well as he needs time to regain his. There is a cafe across the street. Order some food and get something to drink and prepare yourself for a long night." He leaves. The uncle steps back and then looks at everyone and says, "He's correct. Let's get something to eat." But he Googles a pizza place and he orders a medium pizza and a salad for everyone with 2 bottled waters each. Once the food gets there, the uncle encouraged everyone to eat, that they need to make sure that they're strong. To be strong for themselves, that they be strong for their dad and their husband. After this, they all doze off to sleep, one by one. They are exhausted. However, during their sleep, they're unaware that there's been some complications and that the dad has been taken down and taken into given some more tests. All they know is before they awaken the next day, The doctor has come in and awakened them and asked them to follow him to another area on the floor. It's a counseling room. He says, I hate to tell you this, but you have a decision to make. We are at this point such as it is. There was complications while you were resting, and I was told them not to disturb you. I will come in and give you the news. Things have turned for the worse, and there doesn't seem to be a turn back. It has shown that there is blood surrounding the lungs and that the brain is beginning to shut down. His life is changing. Here are your options. As he says that, the son jumps up and says, hey, is there something that y'all did in the surgery? You came out and said there was a complication. The doctor just uses his hand for the young man to take a seat. As the young man takes his seat, his uncle goes over, places his hand on his shoulder to keep him calm and let him know he's there for support. The daughter is embracing her mom to continue to hear the news. The doctor says, listen, we in the black community, especially the males, are hesitant and lazy about taking care of ourselves, going to the doctor to keep updates, to see how our bodies is functioning. And so was this your dad. And he's looking at the son when he says this. Your mom told me yesterday before you got here that your dad had been experiencing some sweating and a cough for the last couple of days. She insisted that he go to the doctor, but he kept refusing as he always do. But she went ahead and made an appointment and just told him when it was due. However, this attack happened 2 days before his doctor's appointment. Here we are with our decision that I regret to tell you. Option 1, we can keep him here on the cardiac care unit. And every time he ceases to breathe and his heart begins to stop, we would induce medication and we would do everything to keep his heart going. However, I must inform you, at this point, he will never awaken to see you or speak with you again. Option number 2 is we can take him and have him transported to the hospice floor. We're on that floor. We will keep him on a heart monitor and keep him on a respirator to help him with his breathing. But at any point the machines go off, that he has had another heart attack, we will not revive him. We will not give him any medication. We will just help him leave here peacefully and be support to you all. The doctor begins to rise up and he says, again, I hate to bring you this news, but we are at this point of such as this life at this time. Please, when you come up with a decision, notify the nurse, she'll notify me, and we'll bring in the paperwork if you choose. Otherwise, he will stay here on a cardiac care intensive unit. He leaves. They hug the mom, and then she stands, and her face is strong. One tear drops out her left eye, and her brother-in-law just watches her. Then he steps back, and he says, sister-in-law, that is your half laying there in that bed. Whatever decision you make, we will stand and support you. She said, I have made my decision. We will transport him down to the hospice unit. The uncle looks and hurries and take off to tell the nurse the news. The children embrace their mom in the middle, holding her, letting her know her decision was the right decision, and they support her. Shortly, the doctor and the nurse comes in. There's papers to be signed, and then they are all taken over to where his room is. As he's getting ready to be transported downstairs, the mother tells the uncle and the daughter to let him know that you're going to step away to get cleaned up. And they do that. She goes to him and say, as they are gone, my husband, I and our son is still here with you, but I have told them to transport you to a different floor in this hospital. They are coming now. The team comes in start taking things apart and preparing him to go down to the hospice floor. As her and the son have stepped outside and the others have left, she tell her son, "Son, when we go down, you can look at your dad, and then I need you to leave and get me something to eat." The son says, "Mom, I don't want to do that." She said, "You have to. I want time alone with my husband." He says, "Okay." They even permit the mom and the son to come in the elevators that they transport patients only for such as this condition. Once he's in there and everything is set up, the mom let the son look at his dad, and then she give him eye contact to leave. Once he is gone, Mom stepped up to her husband. She kisses him on the forehead. Then she leans in down to his ear, and she said, "Oh, husband of mine, you always said you would tell him when he was old enough. As he got older, every year you said, 'Not now, not now.' She said, 'Oh, but you promised before you die and leave this earth, he would know.' But husband of mine, such are we at this point in life. Our son needs to know, and what was never my responsibility to tell him has now become my responsibility. I am not angry at you. I love you. But now I must tell our son why you use the phrase, 'Be careful how you live, son.'" She pulls back looking at him. She squeezes his hand, and there is nothing. Then after less than a minute, it seems to her as if he squeezed back as an agreement with what she must do. So as she's standing there and she's praying to God for the strength, her son comes in. "Mom, I'm back. I brought you something to eat. I have a salad with hot, fresh grilled chicken, honey mustard sauce as you like, and a bottle of water." She never turned to look at him. She only motioned with her hand that he's hid it over there in the windowsill. And she tell him, "Once you put it down, take a seat. I need to have a conversation." She let go of her husband's hand, go over there and sit down. As she sits down, she put both of his hands on top of her hand and then cover his hand. Then she raised up her right hand and she grabs his chin towards her face. She said, "Listen, time is of the essence. I have something to tell you. Please do not interrupt me. I need to get this done." She says, "You are my son. I love you with all my heart and always will. But what am I getting ready to say is going to shock you, but it's the truth. The phrase that your father always told you, 'Be careful how you live, son,' has a story behind it. We were a married couple, and your dad was a strong, handsome, tall, black statuette black man with such a rich skin. His teeth is white, and he's a man of virtue. But sometimes he can be persuaded to do things he really didn't want to do. He always was a man of work ethics, so he always kept a job. But one day, we were getting ready to celebrate your older sister's birthday. It was her second birthday, and we were excited. I was at the house decorating, but your sister began to fuss. So I had to quiet her down and put her to a nap. She was tired. And your dad had went away to pick up some things. As I laid her down in the playpen for a nap, there was a knock at the door. It was actually the screen door. The front door was open, but the screen door was locked. There was a young black lady, rich dark complexion, full lips, and her hair was natural. I liked the little afro she had in it. As I walked to the door, I asked the young lady, "May I help you?" But she asked about your dad. I told the young lady he was not home. And I said, "What business do you have with my husband?" The young lady stood there and said, "Ma'am, you to tell your husband to give me money for this abortion. I'm too young to have a baby, and I need him to give me money for an abortion. His mom tell him I stood there listening to this young lady as the words was coming out of her mouth about my dad, about your dad, my husband. She said the young lady continued and said, "Ma'am, I didn't even know he was married till 2 weeks ago when I went to his office to confront him about giving me money for an abortion. While I was there, he told me, how did he know it was my child?" Out of my peripheral vision, son, I noticed that her hand movement went down to her belly. It wasn't much, just a little pouch. I only could see it from the outline of her rubbing it as her blouse covered it, and it wasn't a maternity blouse. She said, but then the young lady just ended it by saying, when I went there to his office, it was his secretary as I was leaving and told him to make sure he bring me that money. That as I slammed the door, she said, "Oh my, he's a married man with a child." Miss, I didn't know. And when the secretary told me that, it was like a 2-ton brick, or even worse, a 2-ton truck hit me in the face. I was so shocked, I took off running. Ma'am, I explained to you that I never noticed a ring on his finger, but I never looked either. The young lady turned around and walked away. As she walked away, I noticed she wasn't some young girl with real tight jeans and showing off her breasts. Her jeans wasn't tight, and the blouse she wore covered her body. It felt nice over her body, not to draw attention. Oh, was I furious, unbelieving what I heard, but I know what I heard. But I wasn't going to change that day for your sister or the family to celebrate her 2nd birthday. So I had to push those thoughts and fight with them to push behind my mind as I got things done in the house. But when your dad came, as he entered the house with the cake and the balloons, I had to hold my control and keep my tone intact that your sister would continue sleeping. I asked your dad and told him what was going on. He immediately said, "Oh no, that don't have nothing to do with me. That's my brother. He uses my name sometime. He must have got himself in a situation." The mother tells the son, "When your dad said that, I just didn't let it go. I had to put it in a place of keeping control. I didn't know whether to believe him or not. But however, your brother, his brother and your uncle, they do look so much alike, although they only 3 years apart. Yet I must tell you this. I pushed it back in my mind so I could continue for the party. But your uncle had to bring a few things over before everybody else got there. So when he arrived, I immediately confronted him about what just had happened. Your dad was quick to interject and say, 'Hey, brother, some young lady talking about she pregnant coming over here telling my wife. But I told her, sometimes you use my name. So as that way not to get so caught when they see you on the street with your woman.' Your uncle didn't deny anything. He just said, 'Sister-in-law, sometimes I do use my brother's name. I just do.' She said, so I kept it back. And I pushed it back in my mind to keep the celebration going forward. She said, as months passed, it did keep being in my mind. But your dad didn't mention it, and neither did I. She said, and I did know that there was times that your uncle had got caught cheating. And his woman would leave him, and then he would get another. She said, so as time passed and months passed, things just seemed to always be there in a trickle of my mind, but we've moved forward. One day after work, I come in and I've got your sister, and I lay her down the pen as I want to watch TV and relax. Your dad had came home late and he hadn't even called, but I didn't think anything of it. As I'm there eating popcorn and relaxing, all of a sudden I hear the key. Your dad is coming through the front door, which is unusual. He's hurrying in and I can see something is wrong in his face. He hurries and comes near me But I also noticed that your uncle followed in behind him and closed the door and stayed standing at the door with a bundle in his hand. This is Motives of the Heart. Be careful how you live, son. Listen to the full story on TalkTainmentRadio.com. I'm MEMEP.